We are back with another simplified poker analysis of a chip race strategy segment, possibly the last one, depending on how things go. But this is a hand played by a friend of Unibet, Monica Vaka. It's a tournament she won, so a bit of a spoiler alert there. As always, it's best to listen to the chip race segment before looking at this hand analysis. But the only thing I know, Dara, is that it's very early in the tournament and we're very deep.
Yeah. Monica's made a very good start. She's up to over 1.5 starting stacks, which is 165 big blinds at this point. Most of the players have 100 big blinds, including the villain in this case. So she opens under the gun. Well, it's actually under the gun plus 1 9-handed, which is the same as under the gun 8-handed. And she has 10-9 of spades. So, that's completely uncontroversial. And you can see here that that's 100% open. It comes around to the big blind. Now, he has an interesting decision. His hand is pocket queens. And he has, as I said, 100 big blinds. He's covered by her, but it's early in the tournament, so ICM isn't really too much of a factor. What do you like here with queens?
I think I definitely want to raise because with 100 big blinds, I want the pot to be bigger if I'm going to try and get my money in. I mean, I kind of think like raise to sort of 7 or 8. It has to be a little bit bigger because of the position that we're in. Although I'm guilty of, doing a little massage raise of making it like sort of 6, something like that. But definitely raise, as we would do with a pretty strong range in this spot because we could otherwise close the action.
Yeah, as I said on the piece when we recorded with Monica, this is a spot where the big blind is going to do a lot of calling and not too much raising, because we get to just call and see a flop. Whereas if we 3-bet a hand like 9s or 8s, for example, and get 4-bet, we're in a world of pain. So actually, we have a very polar 3-betting range. Our hand needs to be very, very strong to be strong enough to 3-bet, or weak enough that we don't mind 3-bet folding it. And we have a lot of hands in between that just want flat. And you can see here, this is the GTO wizard solution. Aces and kings, absolutely, we go ahead and 3-bet 100% of the time. But queens actually starts to do some flatting. And then as the pairs get smaller, just more and more flatting. And, ace king suited is the only non-pair hand that 3-bets pure. Even ace king off does a lot of flatting, and ace queen off is almost a pure flat. So when that's the case, we want to use a big size.
I was way too low with my bet size in the Dara.
Yeah, way too low. Yeah, you were. Because if you think about it, like if you make it 7 or 8 big blinds, what's going to happen is, first of all, the deeper we are, the more important position is. And Monica is going to be in position in the hand. So she's going to get to call with almost everything. Maybe she folds her worst offsuit. Yeah. Stuff that she's open, but she gets to call with everything else and use the power of position. The stack to pot ratio is going to be very awkward. Like if he makes it 7, okay, so the pot's going to be like 15.5, and they're going to have 92.5 behind. So stack to pot ratio is going to be 6. That's a horrible stack to pot ratio to play with the hand that's going to be top pair a lot. Out of position. So you really want to go bigger and force fold. You can see that if he does make it 11.5, which is what the solver wants to do, now she actually starts to fold 10-9 suited. She can't call it all the time. So she starts to fold all of these hands. But when he uses the size that he actually has, she absolutely has to call all of these hands. Maybe
the villain did bet small like I was.
Oh, sorry, the villain actually used a really small size. He only used 6.5, not even 3.
Okay, that's even small for me then.
Yeah. So even by your standards, is way too slow. So maybe she can fold ace 10 off, king jack off, queen jack off, that type of stuff. But to be honest, probably not even, because she's getting such an amazing price. So so the hand is a little bit unusual right from the start in that he's used a smaller sizing. I didn't bother adjusting the ranges because the hand that she has is calling some of the times
Yeah, 10-9 suited is a very easy call in position in a spot like this. You're almost happy about it, actually. You potentially flop a monster, and we're happy.
Okay, so she does call, and the flop comes Jack of Hearts, 7 of Diamonds, 6 of Spades. So Jack 7-6 Rainbow, one of her suit. She's got a gut shot, and he bets 5.5 big blinds.
I mean, that strikes me as a pretty easy call. We've got a gut shot. We've got a backdoor. We can float against a weaker player potentially if they check the turn. We've got some good bluffs on the turn.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing which I mentioned in the piece with Monica is I think this is a spot a lot of players get wrong, where they think because they've 3-bet pre-flop they have to c-bet. And if you think about the two ranges pre-flop, like his value range has to be very strong. So it's going to be stuff like ace king, maybe ace queen. If he's 3-betting too wide, ace queen is going to get into the mix as well, and then the over pairs obviously. But this board doesn't really smash that range very well. The middling cards favor her more than.
No, the middling cards are almost.
She's more likely to have a. She's far more likely to have a set here. She's far more likely to have a top pair. So if and you can see this if we look at the range analysis. The equities are running close together, but he's out of position, and when that's the case, you are going to have to do a lot of checking. And you can see if we flick back to strategy, Solver's actually saying check 41.2% of the time here, including queens some of the time. So it's not an auto c-bet spot. But he does go ahead and c-bet, and obviously, as no surprise here, we have a pure call. There's a small amount of raising as well, just to kind of put pressure on the fact that this is a good board for her and not so much for him. We can already start targeting, his overcard hands, ace king, ace queen. They probably won't fold this street, but we can get them to fold the next street. So she makes a very uncontroversial call. So the turn is a jack. What do you think about when the jack comes? Actually, before we move on, just look at how much jack X she has as a proportion of her range.
Yeah, you kind of spoiled it.
Yeah,
kind of spoiled it there for me. But,
sorry.
No, I have, without even looking at the Jack X, I like the Jack coming in my situation because that immediately discounts a lot of his value range of of top pair. Also, potentially gives him a reason to slow down with an overpair if he's not a spectacularly balanced player. So I like the Jack because it's a blocker to some of his value.
Yeah, the jack coming obviously it doesn't improve us when we call on the flop. Obviously, we're hoping for an ace. That's the gin card, or a spade that gives us a flush draw, or even a pair, 10 or 9. I think this is a spot where people really struggle to find bluffs now because it's a fairly well-known mechanic that when we pick up equity we can bluff. But if you there's probably not enough hands here that pick up equity. First of all, let's see what he's supposed to do with queens. You can see that queens is mostly just wants to check, which makes sense. The jack is a bad card for the raiser. He has far less jack X in his range.
This would be what we call a way ahead, way behind sort of situation, right, Dara?
Yeah, exactly. Like if she has the jack, she's not folding. So why are we putting money into the pot for her?
Yeah.
If she doesn't have the jack, we want to give her the chance to pretend she has the jack. And so our hand makes a very good bluff catch now. You can see with the overpairs, they're all actually mixing, but the weaker the overpair is, the more it's checking. It benefits from just being a bluff catcher. He does go ahead and bet, which is done at some frequency, so we can look at it. Now she raises. What do you think about her raise?
Yeah, I would have liked to raise on the flop actually because we got the double. We got a gut shot and a backdoor, so it's a nicely disguised hand. I like the raise. We block Jack 10, which probably isn't in the raising range. Actually, in hindsight, Jack 9 is probably not in the raising range. No, I still like the raise. It's like I said, the board has proved as a blocker to some of the value. We could flush out all of the ace high that would double barrel. We could probably get some smaller pairs to fold as an exploit it kind of looks like we've got a jack that was worried about an overpair on the flop. So it might not be for GTO reasons, but I do like the raise.
Yeah. Okay. So now let's look at the GTO response. And you can see 10-9 suited is actually mixing all three options, which is interesting in itself. Now, 10-9 of diamonds is the only one that doesn't mix. And Monica did say if the spade had come, she was actually intending to just check behind and take her equity, which is absolutely what you should be doing. You don't want to get check raised with this hand, but you have the equity to call. So 10-9 of diamonds, which is the one that picks up the flush draw, just calls 100%. The other ones mix all three options: raise, call, and fold at different frequencies. Exploitatively, it's fairly clear, I think, that opponent is not playing this strategy. No. They're not checking half the time, because queens should actually mostly be a check. So the likelihood is they're betting far too often here. And when a player is betting far too often on a board where they don't have enough strong hands for that to be a viable strategy, the best way to exploit them is by raising their bets, because they have too much of their range now that just can't call. Queens, obviously, which he has, is going to be a pure call. We can see that facing the raise, queens is a call. But already ace king off is in the bin. Ace king suited has to start thinking about folding as well. So all these things. There is another nice thing about her specific hand as well. Two of the hands he has in his range that can hang on are Jack 10 suited and Jack 9 suited. And because the Jack of spades isn't on board, she is blocking Jack 10 of spades and Jack 9 of spades.
Yeah.
So yeah, really nice raise from Monica. And as I said, like this is impressive, because players sort of internalize the heuristic of, well, when I pick up equity, I can continue, maybe bluff. But she actually identified in game, this is a spot where if I actually had the diamonds, I'd be better off checking. So I need to find my bluffs from somewhere else. So she raised and he called, and then the river is the Jack of clubs. Now, what do you think he should do, and what do you think she should do?
Right. So I'm going to put a more tight live player pre-flop free betting range on this player, and I would say this is quite good for his hand, because he has a lot of pocket tens, pocket queens, pocket kings, pocket aces. I don't think he raises much ace jack, and I don't think he raises much Jack 10, as we were talking about on the previous street. So the jack is kind of good in that it's turned. He's got some really good full houses, but now he can never have. I don't think he's got quads very often. I think the only time he has quads in a spot like this is if he had pocket jacks, and that's just ruined that. So it's good. It strengthens his range, but he's never got the nuts, in my opinion.
Yeah. It's an interesting card for sure, and this was the one part of the hand I think that surprised me when I looked at it in the solver. The solver actually does a ton of leading now, including with queens, kings, and aces. And I think this is because a lot of her hands, her value hands, have been counterfeited.
Yeah,
if she has pocket sevens or pocket sixes, they've been counterfeited.
Yeah.
And yes, so they're probably not going to bet themselves. They're going to just hope that he hung on with ace high and the hand is good, but they can't necessarily fold all the time either if he bets. So you can see with queens, it just wants him to go ahead and shove, and it does expect sevens and sixes to have to call some of the time. So that's his strategy. But I think, not surprisingly, he kind of got into the mindset of I'm playing this hand defensively, so he did go ahead and check. And she has a completely standard bottom of range spot now where she has to bluff. This is one of her worst hands. It's literally just 10 high. It's actually her worst hand. So the solver just uses it as a bluff 100% of the time. She did go for it all in, and he did call eventually. Now, the solver doesn't tell us what he should do with queens, because the solver has him leading queens all the time. But we can assume Queens is just too far up the range that he can't fold it.
Yeah.
He still has these cards, these other hands that aren't paired hands, so he probably has to call all of his overpairs. Interestingly, she said in game he told her that he seriously thought about folding the turn, and he also didn't feel great about calling the river either. So if she can almost get into full queens, then clearly the bluff is a print. And he also told her that the only rivers he was calling were a queen or a jack. So she was effectively 4-outed.
Yeah. In this analysis, it may look like I was playing the hand along with Monica and her expert thought process. But if I'm perfectly honest, I think I play my queens a lot like this guy did in spots like this, especially in a live poker tournament where I'm not so keen to just reload straight away. Yeah,
absolutely. It's a big buy-in tournament for most Norwegian players, obviously. So, and people don't like busting early on. And she said he tanked for a considerable time on the turn and also on the river, and eventually just threw in the one chip call, which is often a kind of a sigh as well, where you're not expecting
don't make me put all the rest of them in if I've lost.
But overall, I thought the hand is incredibly well played hand by Monica, just to find that bluff on the turn and then follow through on the river. She was effectively 4-outed, so 9 times out of 10 this bluff was working. And the fact, and of course, she came back to win the tournament as well, which is even nice.
That's the other thing. I mean, she obviously covered the guy by quite a decent margin to come back from it. Funny thing is, like, butterfly effect is like, if she'd have won that hand, maybe she would have gone out on day one. It's just
she would
work out.
Yeah, she would have had a different stack size and would have played differently. One of the things I always tell female students when I start coaching them is bluff more, because there is that old life perception that tiny 5'0" women from Norway don't bluff all that much, and Monica plays very much against that type.
People who've never heard of in their opera stand.
So that's basically the hand. If you like this hand, the strategy segment is sponsored by Simplified Poker, our new. And we've recently launched the academy. Maybe Barry, you'd like to say a few words about what's in the academy?
It's going very, very well so far. We have a small but spirited group of players where we have video content, webinars, and the secret sauce really is the community forum. It's a close-knit community forum, and you don't get sort of trolls and time wasters bringing everything down. And you get access to Dara and myself, not quite on tap, but a lot of the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said, Barry.